I want to talk to you about the mods for Brynn, and I'm going to discuss them as best as my knowledge can dictate. But
For Hyperion.
I know I had put up a spotlight a couple days ago, but I wanted to go more in depth on her mods because they seem to be, I guess they can be to an extent good builds, or they could be versatile, but it's not like they're incredibly super powerful from what I've been seeing. And as any freelancer, we're going to start off with the first, her Impale. One of the abilities that I was looking at during time playing her was Radiantium Reinforced, and what it does is that on the first target it hit takes 4 additional damage. Her normal impale is 26. Anything lower than that, when she hits another target after that, is 22, and so on and so forth. And -4 every time each enemy hit. So Radiantium Reinforced gives 30 damage instead of 26. And what I was seeing when I was doing this is that regardless of the 4 additional damage, you still do 22 damage to the secondary target. So sure, you get the first damage with 30, but it's not reduced by 4, it's reduced by 8. So instead of 26, it would be 30, 26, then 22. It's 30, 22. So that secondary hero, or freelancer, excuse me, it's still going to take 22 damage. And I mean, it's a decent ability to have, though 3 cost of energy is still, it's a little iffy. I'd take 2 maybe. One of the other things was Perforate, and decrease damage reduction per target by 2. So instead of 4, so instead of 26, 24, I mean 26, 22, and 18, it's 26, then 24, and then 22. So it's more of a reduction in how much damage you do to the target. So it's you do more, but you're only going to lose 2 instead of 4. Hold the Line is another mod that's kind of pretty useful. Each target hit grants 5 shield, and when Aegis is activated, stacks with multiple stabs up to max of 20. What this basically means is that when you have Aegis out, or Aegis, however you pronounce it, is that you can activate this, because it's a free action, and still use another one of your abilities. But Impale would be the only one to use. I don't know about Soaring Shield and Flight of Valkyrie, but yet again, that's a dash anyway. So Impale would still be it. And when you have Aegis out, you get a... Oh, I'm sorry, each target hit grants 5 shielding. So if, let's say 4 of them attack you and you have your shield directly out there, your actual portable cover, your Aegis shield, is, you gain cover, really. And it's only, I think it's only like 10, or, but like I said, I have no idea as to how that would work. It's either 10 or it's by a percentage of whatever damage you take, but I'm pretty sure it's only just 10. Unless Impale is activated with the Hold the Line, and for each enemy you hit, then you get up to 20 stacking for a shield. So it's still pretty good nonetheless, but that's only if you want to go for a tank build. This is for just obviously being annoying and aggressive. Perforate is really just doing multiple damage to multiple targets. So I mean, it's not like you can, it's not like a 100% guaranteed best build, but you could pretty much experiment. This is just gain energy, so it's not like you're gonna really need it as a frontliner. Aegis, however, Aegis has some that are pretty good. For example, Warforged, you gain Unstoppable for the turn, though, I mean, you could just use Unstoppable anyway as you for a catalyst, and you don't have to cost 3 energy to do it. Energized Barrier, gain 2 extra energy per attack covered against, so you pretty much just gain energy when the Aegis is activated. Skybranium Alloy. Gain 2 extra damage on your next Soaring Shield each time you block. Stacks with multiple blocks up to max of 10 extra damage. Basically, it's like absorbing damage in a way. to where when you use your soaring shield and you hit somebody, instead of doing 26, I believe, or 24 direct damage, it does 34 direct damage. That's only if you hit the max of 10. So it's still pretty good, but I mean, if it goes to a max of 10, that's between somewhere of 30 or 20. I think it goes from 24 to 26 if it's 2 each, and then all the way up to 34. So all you're really using it for is to do more damage from afar with your soaring shield ability. And I mean that can be useful if you're just trying to go for somebody who's trying to run away from you, and you don't have the range on them, so you just use a shield, knock them down, and then kill them. Obviously, shield chain cooldown reduced by 1 when the shield does not guard against any attacks. So if somebody does not hit you, the cooldown reduction is reduced by 1. So it's not like you have to wait 2 turns instead of you would have to wait for the next turn after that. And that's pretty decent. But I don't really think it's something you would have to need, though it is kind of nice to have. Shield Bearer, the cover persists for 1 extra turn. Instead of lasting till the end of the next turn, it just basically adds for another turn after that. I don't know if running would break it. That would be something I would have to go in depth more about. Moving along to Soaring Shield. Wind Up. Increase the maximum number of bounces by 1 and gain 2 damage per bounce. This is pretty much extra tricky mod and a half right here. Just like Lockwood's extra tricky, where every bounce gains 2 additional damage. So it can go from between 34 to 38. This is pretty much it. So every bounce that goes off a wall, she gains 2 additional damage. So it goes from, if you go 2 bounces, it goes 28. If it goes to 1 bounce, it's 26. And that in itself is a pretty good mod to have. Like I said, if you did that with the Aegis mod of, what was it? Skybranium Alloy, then instead of 34 damage, it would be 38 damage. So it'd almost be up there with an L overcharge attack if she had Killing Field. And I mean, I would use this probably more than anything else just to deal with people from afar. The more damage you do, the better off you'll be. But it's not a guaranteed mod that you would have to use, because you still, the objective of Soaring Shield is to hit them, knock them down, and chase them. That's the entire idea of it, because all you're doing, yes, you do damage, but knocking them down is a huge boon in helping you be able to follow them where they're at and kill them before they could do anything else in the game. Kinetic build-up. Increase knockback range by 1 for each wall it bounces off of. Again, it's like wind-up. However, instead of doing damage, the knockback range is increased by 1. That can help you in bouncing off traps like Helio's Wall, going through Lockwood's Trip Mine, going through Overdrone Network, or Overdrone, really, of Nyx's Trap. It could be for many different things. Mostly, if you want to knock them into your teammates, if they're close by, that would be great too. But as I said, it has its own merits as to how you want to perceive or how you want to go about using that specific mod. Press the advantage, gain might next turn. Might is obviously a good thing to have as well, because you gain additional damage. That's 25% the attack damage. So, I mean, for 3 energy, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, because that's just too high of a cost for something like that. Rico Shield. Shield bounces off the first enemy, deal 12 damage to the second target. That is also a pretty nice ability to have as well, judging because of the additional damage to the secondary target. I do not know if the secondary target takes knockback. I don't think they do. I think it's just the first target that takes knockback, and then the second target just takes the 12 damage instead. It would be a little bit different story if both of them got knockback, though. I would like to test it out more, but I mean, as far as the 3 costs, I could see why it's that high. If it was a 2, it'd be a little bit, I guess, overpowered in a sense, but the 12 damage doesn't seem to be like a huge damage on multiple targets. The 24, obviously, the initial, depending upon what mod you have on the first target, and the knockback is decent, or if not great. The 12 damage, on the other hand, with it, I mean, like I said, all you're doing is trying to lower their health as low as possible as a frontliner, and obviously taking damage as really just more than your team, because you have fire powers that are trying to kill them, and all you're doing is just annoying the shit out of the other team anyway. Moving on to her next ability, Flight of the Valkyrie. Her mods here are... I'm not quite sure, really. I was mostly against using Battle Harden. Gain 10 shield to the end of next turn. But because it's 10 shield and it's only a 1 energy cost, I thought it was pretty good to use. You can use Nimble Warrior to gain haste next turn. That is also pretty great to have because you go farther with the haste mod. Booster Boots, increase dash distance by 1. That could also be pretty good, allowing for further engagements and possibly hitting multiple other targets if they're farther out, dealing damage to your allies. But I mean, that in itself would be all right, I guess. I don't know, the 2 energy, increase 1 damage. Her range is pretty far, but I guess if you want to be extra sure to get somebody, that would be quite helpful. But I mean, that would depend upon what you're having for the 3 mods beforehand. Warden, if you are hit on the turn, use this ability. I'm sorry, if you are hit on the turn, you use this ability, the cooldown is reduced by 2. So, I mean, her cooldown already is 5. So she was hit while, if you're using Warden, it would be 3. I mean, that is actually a pretty good ability. I do kind of like that. The thing is that a 3 cost, I mean, I could understand why, but I'm not quite sure how that would work. Because then you'd probably have to get rid of either something with Aegis and Soaring Shield. Impale, you would be wise to stick with something like that because that is your primary. There is no cooldown for that one. But I mean, you're going to take damage regardless, so that 2 reduce cooldown is almost 100% going to happen. Next, Safeguard. When Aegis is triggered by this ability, it persists for 2 turns. So pretty much it's just like the other ability for... where is it? For Aegis Shield Breaker. It persists for 1 extra turn. So, I mean, you don't really need it if you're going to use Safeguard, and this is only a 2-cost energy. And, I mean, Aegis is automatically triggered anyway, because that's what you're using when you do Flight of the Valkyrie. So Safeguard is actually pretty good to have. Her ultimate ability, for the mods on this one, we're going to talk about Shattered Will. Shattered Will is a mod that I like a lot because it has Weakened. Weakened is one of those debuffs in the game that could be the difference between life and death. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because with my L build, I had Brutal Precision to where when you use Overcharge, no matter who's in the cone area, if you are able to hit them and do damage, they are all weak next turn. And that could be their ultimate, that could be their standard attack, it could be whatever. It doesn't matter what the attack. Weakened is very, very beneficial for you. Or it could be it could be a double-sided sword, and it could also hurt the shit out of you if you're trying to kill somebody who's low. But Shattered Will with the Weakened mod is actually very, very great. Not to mention that Spear of Hyperion doing that 35 damage. It centers all the Freelancers and basically knocks them into it. So having weakened them not only knock them back, they're primed to not really do anything besides dash away. They'll either get dash away or they're going to try to dish damage before they die. And that is the best thing to do. when using that ability. On the offensive is another mod. Impale damage will not be reduced for subsequent targets for next turn.
I'll put it in my collection.
Okay, you put it in your collection, that's fine. So if you're using Spear of Hyperion, then Impale when you attack the person next turn will just be 26 all around. I'm guessing that's how that works. And if that's the case, then I mean for a 1 energy, that's actually really good. And I didn't realize it until now. Because I mean Impale is always your attack. That's what you use. That's what you have to use. It's a no cooldown ability. And if after you use your actual attack or your ultimate, then you do 26 damage to everything on the field. But I mean that would depend upon who's all there. And if you can do it to 1 or 2 or 3 Lancers, then it would be great to have. But I like Shattered Will for weakened. So under enemies who aren't moved by knockback take 10 additional damage. This is great if they have Unstoppable. If they have Unstoppable, or if they have some rooting effect, I think rooting would work. I'm not quite sure about that one. I'll figure it out eventually, but if they're not moved, they take 10 additional damage, so it's, instead of 35, it's 45 damage. And, I mean, Unstoppable regardless, if, like, a Titus or a Garrison or somebody else who uses it, they are down, like, 40 health, and you hit them with it, they're dead anyway, so it makes no difference. And her last mod, Indomitable, gained 20 shields next turn. And that is pretty much all I could see from the mods. Her builds are different. I've been trying different ones, especially with her Redemption Force and her Soaring Shield with Rico Shield. And like I said, I have no idea as to how I'm going to go on these different builds. But anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video, and I'll see y'all later.